What happens when your favorite horror franchise gets a TV show? Ash vs. Evil Dead happens. Normally on this show, we talk about a movie, or we even did an episode where we talked about two different TV episodes. But today is something new. We're talking about an entire TV series. That's right, Ash vs. Evil Dead, the return of Bruce Campbell as Ash. Now, since we're doing an entire series, instead of going through every single episode beat for beat like we would usually do for the whole movie, I'm just going to give a quick summary of each season and then go through the standard categories of it came from the bargain bin. You know, public opinion, best kill, scarometer, that kind of thing. This is all in an effort to try and make this show more palatable, because I know that an hour runtime isn't the easiest watch for some people or listen to. So anyway, let's talk about some Deadites. In the meat, we'll start with Season 1. Season 1 starts with a quick recap of the movies, and then Ash is under the influence. He is trying to impress a woman, so he reads from the Necronomicon, showing her the poetry, in quotes. And then he brings back the evil. He gets attacked at the store he works at, and then eventually this cool guy, Pablo, who just looks up to Ash, he's a big admirer. He ends up joining Ash. Ash gets attacked by like some murderous dolls and stuff that are possessed by the evil of the book, and you know that happens. And then Pablo wants Kelly to join them also. Kelly is another coworker who Pablo has a crush on. Ash tries to hit on, fails a lot, very much, because he's kind of a dirty old man in this show, but because it's Bruce Campbell, it's charming instead of creepy and gross. The Necronomicon comes for Kelly's mom, and Pablo realizes what happened. He tries to convince Ash to go save her. He doesn't want to, so Pablo tricks Ash into going to save her, which eventually leads to her joining the team to get revenge on the Deadites. And while all this is happening, a police detective named Amanda Fisher is investigating murders that have happened because of the reading of the book. So technically, Ash is responsible because he read from the book, but he didn't do the murdering. But either way, the detective eventually discovers that he is connected in some way, so she investigates him. And then eventually ends up joining the team and being, there's a bug in here, and being a part of Ash and Pablo and Kelly. And they run into Ruby. Ruby is the main bad guy of this. She is one of the Dark Ones who wrote the Necronomicon. She makes some claims that she wants to stop the evil and make the world a better place, which she means. And the season ends back at the cabin from the movies, and she makes a deal with Ash. Essentially, he gets to be left alone living with Pablo and Kelly in Jacksonville, Florida, in pretty much exchange for them not interfering with what she's doing at all. And that's a very basic and quick synopsis of Season 1. Now I'm going to go ahead for this episode and do the synopsis and then talk about my thoughts as well. One thing I noticed with Season 1 is that it's very fast-paced, like really very fast-paced. A lot of things happen so quickly that the characters really don't have time to process what's happening before something else insane happens. And I can see how a lot of people wouldn't like that, but it personally did not bother me. I like fast-paced things. I can enjoy a slow build, but I also like fast-paced. The one thing that did stick out to me, it wasn't really a complaint, but I can see a valid argument why it isn't good, is that the characters bond like impossibly quickly. There's like a lot of instant trust between the characters that realistically probably wouldn't have happened, although I've never been in a situation where people get possessed by demons and kill other people. So who knows? Overall, I really enjoyed the season. Very violent, maybe more so than the movie. It's been a while since I've watched the movies, but I feel like this is more violent than the movies. It's a lot of comedy, more comedy than horror. I think it's classic Evil Dead comedy, so it does get you sometimes. It tickles you a little bit. But I do think that that's something to really understand about this show. It's not really like trying to be scary. It's more just supposed to be something that's fun to watch. Like, if you've only ever seen the newer Evil Dead remakes, which are just scary, they have funny moments, but they're mostly just scary. This is going to be a wild shift for you, and it's a little weird to think. I know the question whether the new movies and the old movies are connected or not is something that's not really been confirmed 100%, but it is weird to think of this as existing in the same universe as the newer Evil Dead movies. But I still do, because art is subjective. You feel what you want, and I choose to believe. So again, overall, I really enjoyed season 1. My biggest complaint, which isn't even really a complaint, is just the pacing. Some of the relationships of the characters just felt a little rushed just because things happened so fast, but I easily could move past that, so hopefully other people can too. On to season 2. Season 2 picks up right where season 1 ended, kind of. Not right where it ended, but it picks up in the aftermath as chronologically happening shows do. Anyway, it picks up in Jacksonville with Ash, Pablo, and Kelly. They are living happily in Jacksonville. But, of course, it doesn't last because, the season needs a plot. They get attacked by a Deadeye at a huge party, and Ash makes the connection that Ruby is probably in his hometown of Elk Grove, so that's where they head. And then when they get there, they realize that things are pretty bad. Ruby has lost control of her children that she raised, and they're like way more horrifying versions of Deadites. Well, I don't even know if you would call them Deadites because they don't possess anyone. They're just their own beings, and they're pretty horrifying, actually. But that's the main threat. It seems at the beginning of this season is the children, because Ruby is still really played off as a good guy, even though she's one of the dark ones and evil. Anyway, so they team up with Ruby. They team up with the big bad of the previous season, which isn't a problem. And the whole season takes place in Ash's hometown. We meet Ash's dad. We learn a lot about his past, which is pretty cool. It's very interesting to see a lot about his past and where he comes from. And it's really cool to see the town that he came from and how they reacted to the cabin stuff. So you do get a follow, because that's one of the things in a lot of horror movies that you're just wondering, like, okay, that was really good, but what the fuck happens to this person after this? Like, what how do they live their life after all this murder and stuff? Well, he avoided charges. I guess they didn't have proof. They don't really explain. They don't go too deep into it, which is fine. It doesn't really bother me. But basically the whole town thinks he's a murderer and call him Ashy Slashy. So they work together. They're trying to kill all the children, send them back to hell. And then eventually the children get Ball, who's like a big bad demon who used to be intimate with Ruby. Could have explained that better. But that happens. He gets released. He's built up a lot. He's built up like he is a world ender, the scariest thing to ever live. And I personally think he really doesn't end up as that much of a threat at all. I thought the episodes he was in were cool. He was a little underwhelming for me. But again, I'm just really not someone who's nitpicky. I try to enjoy things as much as possible, so stuff doesn't bother me that much like this. So like he was built up, he wasn't that much of a threat, but I still liked the whole thing, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, he becomes the big bad for a while. Pablo dies, big emotional moment, and he dies in a sacrifice. He sacrifices himself to kill Ball, and he dies. And so they go back into time. That Jesus Christ. They go back in time to the 80s to try and stop Ash from reading the book in the first place. So the end of this season also ends up at the cabin. We see Henrietta from the first movie. We see Professor Noby. He's feeding children to not full blown children, but like college kids. He's feeding college kids to Henrietta, it seems, or trying to put the demon in them instead, or something. Not really a good guy. But they go back and they see the 80s version of Ruby, which is the bad Ruby. It's now established 80s Ruby is bad, current Ruby is not bad. But then the current Ruby sacrifices herself to save them from 80s Ruby. And that leads into the new season, or that leads to the end of the season, and everything seems okay. The town is honoring Ash because they finally realize that he's actually a hero. He didn't murder anyone. And then we see 80s Ruby in the crowd of Ash's celebration. Now, my thoughts on season 2. Was it better than season 1? Maybe. It was still pretty fast-paced, but again, not something that really bothers me. It was a little more emotional than the first one, which is more earned because you know the characters better and they know each other better, and you can kind of feel it from watching the show. All the relationships feel a little more believable. I particularly enjoy Ash and his dad. That's a really fun one to watch on screen. I think this one has more comedy than the first season, and I think it is funnier. So it's not just quantity, also quality. I feel like it has more gore. I could be wrong. That's just what it is. That's just how I feel. But again, this season's really cool. Learning about Ash's past, learning about what happened after the Evil Dead movies. Now, I could see some people complaining that there aren't really any stakes. And I get it. Like, a big complaint with Stranger Things is that they never kill any of the main characters, so it feels like there's no stakes. I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I understand where people are coming from when they say stuff like that, because when a main character dies, it's a big emotional moment. It makes you feel, it makes you cry. I like to cry when I watch movies. I like to feel the movies I'm watching. It makes them more enjoyable. But I think that can be accomplished, and I think that a show or movie can have stakes that feel real without having to kill one of the main characters. Again, I can see where people are coming from, why they would want that, because it can make the story hit harder when there's consequences like losing a main character, but I don't think it's really necessary, and I don't think this show really needed it either, because, again, this show is more about just, it's fun to watch. It's not necessarily about it has the biggest stakes in the world and it feels real or whatever. It's just an enjoyable show to watch. It's about gore and being funny and a little bit of fan service, and it does all of that, I think. So now we move on to season 3. Season 3, I think, is the most interesting and the most different than all the other ones. It still takes place mostly in Elk Grove, maybe all in Elk Grove. I think all in Elk Grove. So it starts off, Ash and Pablo are still there in Elk Grove. Ash is running a successful hardware store that he inherited from his father, Ashy Slashy's Hardware, or I don't know if it's a hardware and sex toy store. He's running that. Pablo's man in the taco truck, and Kelly has pretty much run away without saying much. But they've moved on. But because this is Ash versus Evil Dead, the evil is not over. We return to the time skip, we return to the ending of the last one where Ruby from the 80s is clearly not dead. And she is the main bad guy of this villain. So Ruby's main bad guy 2 out of 3 seasons. She's really killing it. This one moves kind of fast at the beginning. I feel like the pacing improves throughout the season, although there are some rushed relationships, which I'll get to. So I'm skipping around a little bit, but Ruby has actually been posing as the school counselor to gain the trust of. I was a little confused personally. I could be wrong. So Ash finds out he has a daughter. Um, she does not trust Ash at all at first because their first interaction was very negative. Um, she just thinks he's a murderer, and that's fine. We'll get to the rest of the relationship in a minute. But he finds out he has a daughter. She goes to high school, and the '80s Ruby has been the counselor at the high school for I think she said 2 years, and it's I don't know if it's just me that was confused, but it like she seems to have not known Ash has a daughter, and then later on she says like I haven't been doing this for 2 years for nothing or something like that. So I'm a little confused as to that whole situation there, but again, really didn't bother me that much if I'm being honest. I'm not very nitpicky. I just enjoyed watching it. So let's try to get back. His daughter is like in detention with a friend for drawing penises on lockers and stuff, which this is one of those things also where her introduction doesn't seem to really match her character that well. Like she's introduced as like a graffitiing rebel girl, whatever, and then for the rest of the series, she just I don't really have any evidence specifically, but it just doesn't feel like that's who she is. So this just seems like an odd character introduction for her, but that's fine because it's mostly used just to introduce Ash to her because they get attacked by a bloody mascot who's actually a deadite. Ash's mom just kind of this, like I said, the beginning is just feels a little rushed, a little fast, but it gets better. Like she calls her mom in a panic, and her mom is in the crowd in front of the hardware sex toy store and just says, Ash, I'm your wife, and you have a daughter, and she's in danger. And then we find out that Ash got married to her, like, on a drunken night, and they conceived a daughter, and now Ash is finding out about her now that she's in high school. So they go to the high school. He saves her. Her friend gets murdered. She doesn't really trust him that much, but her mom gets murdered, so she kind of has to go with him, which I'm not really sure of the legality and the whole process of this, but that's not something you really need to worry about for this show. So then we go back to Ruby. She's creating a new prophesized one who is basically a clone of Ash, which he has an organic chainsaw arm, which is pretty cool, but they have to cut it off later. Anyway, her plan is to get Ash's daughter, Brandy, to kill him, so that this new guy, this new clone of Ash, can become the new prophesied one, and she can control him and take over. But that doesn't really work out. Eventually, the prophesied ones come back, god damn it, the dark ones come back and just fuck everything up, and that's yeah. There's just, and I know I'm missing a lot. These are very short synopsis of these seasons. This one should be longer, but it's not. There's just a lot more going on in this season, I feel like, than the other ones. There's a lot more moving parts. So this one's harder to, I'm leaving out a lot more in this one, I feel, than I was in the other ones, just because there's so many things happening in this one compared to the other ones. Like the whole time there's a dynamic between Ash and his daughter where she keeps losing trust in him and then like regaining it, and it's a lot, but it's good. I think this is a really good season. I think that the first season, not that I think any of them are bad, but I think the first one's the worst. This one, it's really hard for me to decide between the second season and this one. I like them both a lot, but that's beside the point. That's not what I'm looking at here. Anyway, the season ends with the dark ones. They come back to fuck everything up. They unleash a giant monster. I don't remember what it's called. In an emotional moment, which it's not really the main course for this show, but it works. He separates from the group. He is perfectly ready and willing to sacrifice himself to kill this monster, but he doesn't. He goes to kill the monster, and then he wakes up in a dystopian future. He turns out he was in a coma. And then he wakes up, everything's all fucked up, and that's where the show ends. He gets in a pimped out version of his car with a cyborg lady, or maybe just a robotically, I don't know, just a interesting looking lady. And that's where the show ends. The show got canceled, so we never got to see a follow up to that. Would have been pretty cool, I think. I personally, that kind of like dystopian future stuff is not really my favorite, but I would have been very curious to see where it follows up. But we don't get to learn any of that. We don't know what happened to anyone else in the show other than Ash, and that's how it ended. And it sucks, but shows get canceled, unfortunately. As far as what I thought about this season, again, I think the pacing was a lot better. It started out really fast, but then it kind of slowed down and really caught its groove, caught its rhythm, whatever you want to say. Like it still moved quick, but it didn't feel as rushed. And again, I just want to clarify, I don't think the rushing is a bad thing at all. I enjoy the whole thing no matter what. It was cool to see Ash with the daughter, even though, again, it was kind of just thrown in there real quick. It made Ash, what's the word? He had character progression, character growth, but he was still at his core Ash. Again, it's not my favorite way for it to end, but really out of their control since they got canceled. They clearly, I'm sure, had a plan for the next season, which again I would have been very curious to see, but it didn't happen. And I'm not one of those people who, if the ending is bad, it ruins the whole thing for me. So I still liked it. I again, like I just have a hard time deciding between season 2 and 3 because I like them both a lot. All right, sorry about that. I mean, I know to you it was nothing, but to me it was a few minutes of annoyance because I was going to read the reviews off my computer, but I don't have my IMDb login, and for some reason on the desktop app you have to log in to be able to read all the reviews. So I have to pull up my phone to read the reviews. So we're going to look at the 1-star reviews. There's only 5 1-star reviews, which I'm happy to see. First one, 1 out of 10, soulless and empty show. Nothing is good. This is just a unfunny gore-fest show with no soul. Wrong. Some people don't know how to communicate that a show or movie was just not for them. Some people are personally offended if they don't like a show, and they decide that it's just bad rather than just not something they enjoy. 16 people found that helpful. The next one, those 2 hipster sidekicks, ... Destroyed the show. Barely watchable. Embarrassing, Raimi. Enough with giving a paycheck to the Hipster Elite Actors Guild of America. Long live Campbell and Lawless, though. What? I don't really understand how either of those people were hipster. I guess because they weren't white, maybe? What? This review was written by Hitch Slapper. I don't even... I just have to look up real quick. This is unheard of in one of these videos, but I have to look up, is Bruce Campbell in the Actors Guild? He is not a member of the Actors Guild. Okay. Well, is Lucy Lawless, though? Because the person also called her out. And apparently she is not either. Okay. Well, let's also look up the other 2, though. I'm still just really confused as to what makes them hipsters. Okay, so Ray Santiago, the actor who played Pablo, definitely not in the Actors Guild. So now I need to also look up the actress who plays Kelly and see, just because I'm actually just fueled by hatred right now. of this specific person on the internet. So I just need to I just need to know. But I'm really just having a hard time navigating my this. Dana De Lorenzo. Let me just okay. No. So apparently none of them are in the Screen Actors Guild. So this person is just ignorant and stupid. I know those are pretty similar. They're synonyms, but that's just so annoying. That's crazy to me. And I can feel right now that I'm getting to the point where I'm getting actually too upset and worked up by the 1-star reviews. So we're gonna move on to Best Kill. Best Kill. Now this one's a little different. It's a little harder to pick because it's a whole series rather than just one movie. Like instead of an hour, you watch like way longer than that. So it's hard. And for this one specifically, I'm not necessarily picking this kill for the kill. I'm picking it for what really happened after it. Excuse me. So there's a part where Ash goes into Ruby's house, or the house of the person whose identity she stole. And she, as I said, she's raising a clone of Ash who starts out as a baby and is a child. And she has a prisoner basically to feed the person's body parts to the baby when it runs out of its current body parts. Ash breaks in, he starts to save her. She knocks him out, and then the child, probably 5 years old, 5 or 6 maybe even 7, 6, 7. It kills her. He wakes up, and then at some point it climbs, it crawls. It's in season 3, by the way. I feel like I didn't say that, but it crawls up into her vagina. This child, this demon child, and then it pops out of her head, and its head is out of her neck hole where her head used to be because she got decapitated, and then it comes back out of from between her legs, and it just like that. It's classic Evil Dead comedy, and this is just, there's so many moments in all the seasons that like if someone walked in, you could not explain yourself. There's no way. This tops all of the moments. You could not. Someone walked in and you saw. If someone walked in and saw you watching a video of a fucking child popping its head out of the vagina of a decapitated woman, you're not explaining that away. Especially if it's someone who doesn't know horror or Evil Dead or anything like that. You're done in that person's eyes. It's just, when I was trying to think of which I would pick for Best Kill, this is the one that stuck with me. I couldn't think of anything else. I forgot all the kills except for this one. So now we're going to move on to the Scarometer. Now I'm going to be honest right out the gate. This one's going to be a pretty low score, mostly because, like I said, this is more of a comedy than a horror. I really enjoy it. It has some creepy moments. The Deadites are always a little bit creepy, but it's really not the scariest of all time. If you're not a horror person and you're easily scared, then yeah, this one will get you. But for the most part, it's really not that bad. So I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 10 on the Scarometer. And that's okay, because it doesn't have to be scary. Now, to end this episode, it's been a while since we've done like a deeper episode. I did the quick episode on Evil Dead Burn, but that was more of just I had just watched it in the theater, haven't done an episode in a while, kind of wanted to get my thoughts out. So to end this episode, this first official shorter length episode, I'm going to go through all the Scarometer. and read you all the ones we've done so far, which it's probably not actually all the ones we've done. I don't know when the last time I've updated this one was, so I'll tell you all the ones that are saved on my document on Google Docs. That's what I'll do. All right, starting from the least scary to the most scary. We start with Toxic Avenger with a rating of 1 out of 10 scary. Not very scary. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, 1.5 scary. Not that scary. Eden, 2 scary. Friday the 13th, 2 scary. The Girl Who Cried Monster, which is a Goosebumps episode, also a 2 scary. And both at 2.5, we have Friday the 13th Part 2 and The Tale of the Quiet Librarian, which is an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. Next, with a 3, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Friday the 13th Part 3 also has a 3, which is cool. I didn't realize that before. With a 3.5, we have Chud, Demonic Toys, and Ash vs. Evil Dead. We'll go ahead and pop that one in there. With a 4, we have Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. With a 4.5, we have a Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. With a 5, we have Final Destination, Bloodlines. With a 5.5, we have Creep. With a 6.5, we have a Nightmare on Elm Street. With a 7, which is the scariest movie so far on this list, we have... I actually am now realizing I'm not going to say it because it was an episode that we recorded and then lost the audio and video for, so it never came out. And I don't want to spoil it in case we revisit it, which we probably will because it's going to be Halloween soon. So for now, our top scariest movie that we've reviewed, Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. Anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Please continue to watch if you enjoyed. Blah, blah, blah.